Hello, good morning, and it is a good morning. This is going to be a great day, a super fun day for me because today is my 50th birthday. Yay, I made it to 50. Fantastic. And I'm in pretty good health, so that feels really good. Always feels good to be in good health. Definitely. Now, I have a lot to share. I'm starting a new painting today from this image here. But before I get into that, there was a video that I watched on YouTube last night from a channel called NOWNESS. And it was about an 87-year-old gentleman from Okinawa, Japan, that runs every day. And I figured this would be fitting considering I'm turning 50. I got a bunch of gray hair. I got glasses now. Getting older, feeling those age pains in your joints and issues, having, problems and things like that. Can't move around as well as you could when you were 20, all that kind of stuff. Yay, getting older. But in that video, he said some words that I thought was pretty nice. And I wrote a bunch of stuff down. Not that you can read that. I just put it there just so I could read it. He says, nobody gets old by nearly a number of years. We grow old by deserting ideals. Yeah, I thought that was really great because it's more like a mind state getting old. Like, yeah, our body breaks down, things like that. A lot of stuff we can't get away from. But it's about how our mind is about these. And we desert this idea that we can do things like going to the floor and getting back up. I know a lot of older people, older than me, I have a lot of trouble in that. I know a lot of people close to my age have trouble doing that. So yeah, stay a child, stay a kid for as long as you can, definitely. Years may wrinkle skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles the soul. I'm still enthusiastic about riding my bike, running, exercise. Actually, in fact, this morning, one of my favorite things to do in the morning is to go out for breakfast. I don't do it often, maybe once a week, probably twice a month maximum, because, I normally get like pancakes, which isn't great for you, and going out to eat isn't the best for you anyways. But I rode my bike there. I was like, you know what? The best thing I can do on my 50th birthday is exercise. Feels really good. Feel alive. Feel that aliveness, especially in the cool air in the morning, because here in Colorado, it's going to be hot today, very hot. But yeah, years may wrinkle skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles soul. I'm enthusiastic about exercise still, so that's always really good. I really like this one. Youth is not the time of life, it's a state of mind. It's not rosy cheeks nor red lips, it's a matter of will. I love that. Youth is not just a time in your life, it's a state of mind. We can still have fun and be youthful in, how we feel about things. It's so easy for us to kind of be negative on how older we're getting and how we can't do this or we can't do that, things like this. And it's kind of nice to be reminded from an 87-year-old that runs every single day that we have possibilities within us if we just don't give it up, if we change our state of mind of what is possible and do maybe something a little bit more than we think we can, out of our comfort zone, right? Works perfectly with artwork. And I'm only repeating this from an 87-year-old because I know there's probably older people that are watching my channel right now and listening to my words, and they're going, dude, you're only 50. And maybe there's younger people out there that goes, wow, you're old. 50, so old. So, it's all subjective, but I like the words, and I felt at least they were impactful for me. At least it's all subjective, right? So there we go. Now let's get on to the next painting. Now this is interesting. See, I'm lifting it up here. I make panels for all of my paintings. This is one of those panels, black on the back, black on the side. It's about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches on the side here. And I made this panel for a previous painting, but I made it the wrong size and I had to remake it. But I wasn't going to waste it. I wasn't going to throw it away. And I think it's going to work perfectly for this painting. I've already drawn it out. Obviously, you can see it here. At one of the galleries I was working at, I decided, okay, let's just start drawing this painting out. That way I can start painting it on YouTube, right? But the problem I have here is that I need to prop it up with something. I can't tape this like paper to my drafting table. So I got a few books here. Let's see if Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon is actually going to work to prop it up. Really good book. I think it needs to be a bit higher. Okay. 10 Things Nobody Told You About Being Creative. Still Like an Artist. Really good book. I would suggest it. How about Mastery by George Leonard? Let's see. Oh, that's pretty good. Not too bad. Maybe it could be a little bit higher. Maybe a taller book. By the way, Mastery by George Leonard, I would say, like, if you're going for mastery in anything, which, mastery is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, but you don't reach mastery in anything. Actually, if you talk to Rembrandt, he would probably say, yeah, still haven't mastered it. Maybe one day. It's like the horizon. Every time you get a little bit further, it gets a little bit further off. Like Hokusai said the same thing. He's something about at 60, he didn't know anything. 70, he thought he knew something. And 80, he's maybe scratching the surface. Master printer, right? Saying that at 80, he's nowhere near mastery. All right, next book. Oh, this one's awesome. This is An Audience of One by Srinivas Rao. Fantastic book, Reclaiming Creativity for Its Own Sake. I love that book. If you want a book that gives you like permission to be yourself and gives you reasons for that permission, An Audience of One by Srinivas Rao. There you go. That works. And I have a wonderful reminder down here that you can't see about, being myself and being creative. All right. So there's a few things I want to talk to you about this. Important stuff. Important, awesome, fun things. Okay. I'm always experimenting with something. And I love that aspect of oil painting and art in general. You can always try different materials, try different configurations of the materials that you have. And for this one, instead of painting, like I could have just continued to paint on paper, like created a paper that was a little bit larger than this. And then after I finished the painting, went ahead and glued it to this panel. Would have worked perfectly because the panel was done. But I said, you know what? I'm going to paint directly on the panel. I've done that before in the past, works well. What's great about panels like this is they're super smooth. You don't have to worry about a lot of texture. But the one thing I like about paper is it is absorbent. It absorbs a lot of the oil paint. And I like that feeling. I like having to push it around. I like how it forces me to really pull up a lot of paint and chunk it down in a lot of instances. And then the day after, when I come back, a lot of that oil is soaked in and everything, a lot of glare is removed. It gets a bit more matte, and painting over that feels really good. I like the feeling of it. But as I gessoed this, I was thinking, I need to find a way to make this gesso more absorbent. So I went on the Googles and I was like, I asked, how can I make gesso more absorbent? And what's interesting is you can add baking soda to your gesso to make it more absorbent. I've never done this before. I don't even know if it's really absorbent yet, but I'm going to try it. Okay. The one thing is it's very gritty. It feels like sandpaper, like a high grit sandpaper, like maybe a 200 or 220, maybe even higher than that, like a 300 grit sandpaper. Pretty smooth, but still sandpaper-ish. So that's going to be interesting to paint on. And we're going to see how absorbent it is. So brand new there, brand new. I'll let you know how it goes. That way you can maybe try it yourself. But I made a whole bunch of other notes, all these notes up here, while I was at breakfast for this painting. Because I'm looking at the image. You can see the image here pretty clearly. Oh, by the way, sorry about this angle of everything. See how it kind of goes down? I have the camera, this camera here that I'm pointing at, is high above my head behind me. And my drafting table is almost vertical. So the combination of those two things gets this kind of vertical approach. So sorry about that. It's best for me to avoid as much glare as possible, but the video is not the best. I could probably go in OBS and, adjust the perspective on this so it's flat, but I don't think that's necessary. I think you can see what's happening for the most part. And then after the painting's done, I'll show the imagery of the painting, that kind of thing. Okay. Let's go back to the image. Here is what I think is fantastic to do whenever you see an image that you enjoy. So I did, the previous painting was Rusalka 1. This is Rusalka 2. And if you watch those videos, Rusalka is a Slavic mythology about usually female water beings that are either good or bad. Like the idea of it, but I love the imagery. This is from Graphite Studio. I think it's like 1200 mystical water, beings or something like that. Anyway, just do a Google search for Graphite Studio. And on the previous videos for Rusalka 1, I put the link to Graphite Studio down there so you could buy from them if you want to try these images. Okay, now the notes that I made are an extension of the spark that I felt when I first saw this image. We all see like these images that we enjoy, right? We'll see an image and we'll say, oh man, that looks really cool. I want to paint that. Normally, we don't know why, at least I don't initially. Okay, why is that one more interesting than the other? And a lot of times we don't think about it. We just say, we have that initial spark and that's all we have to go on. And we begin a painting. And through my last 12 and a half years of doing that, what I've learned is that's not enough to get me through the entire painting and to come at the end of that painting with something that I'm happy with most of the time. So one of the best things you can do is utilize the kind of finite in stone fundamentals of painting and of art to solidify the initial kind of idea that you have for an image and also give it language so that it makes it easier for you to move from image to paint. What do I mean by that? Let me give you the exact notes that I wrote down. And we're going to go through things like composition, value, hue, saturation. Oh, all that's coming off of my fingers. Value, hue, saturation, which are the fundamentals of color, right? We'll go through brush work, brush economy, edges. These are things that are in stone. Everything that you have to deal with whenever you're painting or drawing or whatever, okay? And if you utilize those fundamentals, these kind of keystones, I guess, and go through each one and go, okay, well, how can I utilize this to say what I want to say with this image? It will help you understand why you pick the image in the first place and give you the language to do the transfer from, imagery through you, out your arm, into paint on the canvas. So what I like about this image, and usually you start with that, what I like about the image, and usually it's like compositional or color or value or something like that. It's easy to transfer into these words. I really like the curve at the top here. So we have these waves and there's a nice separation here of these curves. It's almost like if there was a really big circle, okay, circling the midpoint of this figure, because we had a curve at the top from the waves and then this opposite curve at the bottom with the fabric that is in the water. Just beautiful. It's like, I'm going to circle the center of this. Then we also have light at the top, this light band at the top, and then the light fabric at the bottom. Everything is like circling, like keeping the viewer right here in the center. I don't feel like anything's really throwing the viewer out. It's a constant circle. Also, light background, darker head. Tremendous focus there. Sharp edges all around the head. This is going to be the focal point of the painting, definitely. Right here, light background, dark head. Now, let's say though, the water went dark all the way up to this spot, like this darkness here went all the way up to there. The first thing I would do is bring a lot of that lightness down just like it is in the image to separate that head from the background a bit more. It reminds me of a painting I saw once in a gallery, and I can't name this painting whatsoever, but because it wasn't a super prominent artist, but it was a gorgeous painting. And it was a landscape. big field, and imagine the horizon line dividing the landscape directly in half, which is what you're normally not supposed to do unless it's intentional, which it was in this painting. Usually you want a high horizon line or a low horizon line. But in this one, the artist had divided the entire canvas right in half, which really kind of slowed everything down, quieted everything down. It was steel, no dynamism when you do that. But it had a bunch of cows and then one person that was, I don't know, tending the cows or something like that. Their head went just a little bit over that horizon line. And that little change, it was like maybe 1/100th of the painting, this little tiny thing where the head was going over that horizon line. That was the extreme focus. Like you couldn't look at anything but that. And the same thing is true here. You got this kind of line that's stopping the darker area of the water, and then it's lighter above, and then the head is above that to create that contrast. Compositional, we're looking at, this is like a compositional element. This is value. This is going to take on edges, shape. Everything is going to be directed in here. And you see how I'm using words that are about painting. These are painting words: value, edges, composition. So hue, how we're going to treat hue, color within this painting. So blues all over. The whole thing is blue. But, and like in the last painting where the top of the figure's head, I put like a bit of red in there. In this figure, I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to probably bring it down. Half of the face, maybe half of the head is going to be covered in like this bright sunlight. I'm definitely going to be moving away from that image, but it's going to be a lot of fun to do that. So that's going to make this focus even more extreme. Blues and everything in the background, and then extreme saturation here. So blue, red. But I'll probably turn these blues. See, it's very blue here. I'll probably take a lot of the blues of this water into more of a greener shade, more of a complementary to that red to pop it out even more. Talked about saturation, the light hitting the top of the head, definitely. This is going to be extreme. And there's a couple images. There's an artist that I want to look up. Actually, I should have done it before I started recording this, but I'll probably try and show some images when I edit this. There's an artist, I can't remember their name, that does like these pink on black paintings that have just such extreme contrast, and it's gorgeous. And then there's another image that I'm inspired by that I remembered. So I'll probably show those. Brushwork. How am I going to treat brushwork? See, that's another thing. Like if we think about these things, then we can bring some direction within this. Then at this point, it's not about just copying from here to here. It's about translating and making the image more than it is. So how are we going to treat brushwork? Is it going to be all sharp, all shapes? Do I want to do something like Nicholas Uribe does, or Steve Houston, or Kwang Ho, or Greg Manches, or all these other artists I have hanging up here, Ann Gale, Olga Boznanska, oh my goodness, Mark Tennant, all these artists. I mean, they have very simplistic brushwork in a lot of ways, but they all treat it differently. I think, like I wrote down here, I'm going to bend all of the fundamentals of art towards the focal point in the extreme, okay, to really kind of push that point home here in the focal points. So red and orange in the focal point, but then bluish greens in the background. Sharp edges and sharp shapes in the focal point, and then soft in the background. Yeah, okay. So that's what I want you to try and do. I'm giving you orders here. Chris giving me orders. Who does he think he is? I'm going to give you suggestions here. Here's my suggestion. You find an image that you have a spark of interest in, and or maybe you don't know why that interest has been sparked within you, but you want to paint this image. So what you do is you write down these fundamentals. So color and the aspects of color, value, hue, and saturation, composition, edges, detail, brushwork, all these kind of things. And you go through each one and you go, okay, how am I going to treat this composition? What do I like about this that is compositionally amazing to me? And there's no wrong answer to this. That's the fun thing about it. You come up with those answers. Not only does it give you more understanding of why you initially saw this image and you were just blown away by it, but it gives you that all important language to be able to use physical tools to actually translate it through you and onto the painting. Now, that doesn't mean that, like, I defined what I want to do in here. I wrote it down. I'll probably have to keep it next to me because I forget things all the time. It doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect. I might get into this and try exactly what I wrote out and then figure out later that this ain't working. And then I can adjust. But I have the definition of it. And I can say, okay, that super bright saturation just isn't working here for these reasons. And hopefully you can see how translating love, enthusiasm, motivation, interest, subjective words for feeling into more objective words that we need to be able to actually make a painting that we want to make. I feel like that kind of translation from subjective to objective is always necessary in order to translate. It reminds me of Richard Schmid in his book, Alla Prima, or Alla Prima 2. Fantastic book for oil painting. He was talking about something similar, how we have these emotional ideas for a piece of, an image. Let's say it's our child and we say, oh, I just love how cute their face is, which is very subjective. I love how cute it is. It really doesn't give us an idea of how to translate cuteness from the image to our canvas. But Richard Schmid says, yeah, well, cuteness is just a drawing issue, a drawing problem, right? Cuteness is making sure that we get the eyes and the forehead and the nose and the mouth right for this child or this image to make them look cute, right? Or beautiful or handsome or whatever, subjective word you want to place on it. Translating it through very objective, artistic, fundamental practices really helps us to be able to make the paintings that we want to make and to keep that enthusiasm through the whole process. So many times throughout my career as an artist, I've had that enthusiasm. Oh, this is really cool. But I never thought about these objective fundamentals and I'm unable to translate. I just end up trying to copy what's there. Sometimes works, but it doesn't really translate, the real feeling that I have. So yeah, that is my suggestion for next time you start a painting or a drawing or whatever. Run it through make a list of the fundamentals of art that are important to you and run it through all of those words and then see what you come up with. Does it help you? Does it not help you? Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. Or not. That's okay too. Okay. I'm going to get to painting on this. And like always, I'm going to time lapse through that. I don't think I'm going to get too far in this one today. It's my birthday. Okay. I love painting, but I have some other really fun things that I want to do today. The very first fun thing was talking to you about art, and I love doing that. So yeah, chatting your ear off again. Hopefully you find this helpful. But anyway, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to time lapse this. I'll see you on the other end. have it. Hey. Okay. So this was really interesting. Hopefully you remember that I said that my surface is like sandpaper. Well, it literally is sanding my brush down. I feel my brush getting shorter every time that I put strokes on there. It does react like sandpaper. And one of the things that it's very difficult to do is put down enough paint. I've had to mix big piles of paint with my palette knife, and as soon as I put them down, they like the coverage just doesn't happen. I really have to sit here and kind of like scumble this paint into the interstices in this thing, this panel that I created, this sandpaper panel. So, well, it's definitely a new experience. I'm not sure if I'll do it again, but if you really want to force yourself to paint thicker with lots more paint, this is the way to do it. Just get a really rough surface, and that would really help you like force yourself to make a lot more mixtures and to mix up a lot more paint and to put a lot more paint down. Okay. But so, this first session or second, third session on this painting, whatever it is, went pretty well. The one thing that I really wanted to establish is how this is going to look, because I am not very experienced in taking an image and adjusting the light on it. Like I can kind of feel around a form, and if I visualize light coming from a certain direction, I can kind of feel it, how it would transition from one part of the head to the other. And I'm getting that kind of close. I was going to do it from the right, but then that just proved too difficult. Also, I was looking at this image here, which is a wonderful example of, light hitting the head and then falling off dramatically, kind of like maybe the sun is going down or something like that, or there's something kind of casting a shadow, like she would have, or they would have more light on their body, but there's something that's casting a shadow there. So really pulling heavily from how this light turns over and down the nose and then goes back up and then over the roundness of the cheek there, the zygomatic arch and the cheekbone, how it really falls off here when you go from the front of the head, the forehead, to kind of not the side of the head, but almost the side of the head. So trying to feel that is a lot of fun. And working in a smaller area like this, where I can easily mix up a big pile of paint and put it down, I don't find that the texture on the panel to be that much of an issue. It's when I'm trying to cover really broad areas that it becomes much more difficult. Now this color here needs to get warmed up a whole bunch. Doesn't feel like it's part of the face, kind of like it's painted in some way. That's one thing that I really need to work on this, is to make it look like it's light on the face and not paint on the face. That's something that, multiple times I've painted figures with extreme light in one place and it's kind of abruptly cut off in another place. And in a lot of those, it didn't feel like light. It felt like a painted face, which, is much different than light. Yeah, warming that up really helps. Bringing that kind of skin back in there, making it warmer than what's around it, but not near as warm as what's directly in light. And of course, the value range, always squinting with this. Well, I'm always squinting in general at the image that I'm working from, and the painting, to really help me understand where the values are. And when I stop and start talking, I really need to just stop painting, because I can't do both at once, I think. At least I can't do both well at once. multitasking doesn't work. I only have a few neurons that are working up there, so I have to go easy on them. But I keep seeing things like I want to adjust this real quick. Usually what I like to do after a painting session, because I'm going to be looking at this painting for, 12 to 24 hours before the next painting session. And so I like to get it to a point where I can begin to make judgments about it over that time frame. I need to go back to this image. I can make judgments about it over that time frame. And then once I come back to it and I have, this extra time of looking, becomes really helpful. Yeah, I think that's going to be, what's the word for it? I think it's going to be really powerful. From here, I got the coloration all figured out. I think it looks good. I like it. I like where it's at. The rest of it's going to be all about rendering and getting the detail where I want it, making sure I stick with those separate color areas, which is obviously super red, super orangish white, blue going to like a bluish green, all in the water going to like a darker bluish green, and then the dress almost perfectly phthalo blue with just a little bit of cadmium red in it, so it's more bluer. The water is greener, and the flesh, all of the skin tones are going to be warmer in a lot of ways. I even need to warm them up even more. It's really interesting how much warmth I can put into the skin tones here, and yet keep them so much cooler than everything here. It's really wonderful. It's just being able to see that. Yeah, 100%. Loving it already. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be continuing on this painting next session, which you'll probably see up tomorrow, the next day. And yeah, if you want to see more of my artwork, go to my website, chrisbevan.com, linked in the description below. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.